An important Week 4 test awaits for the Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday afternoon as the Birds play host to the Washington Commanders. The first divisional matchup for the Eagles here on their 2023 schedule. And coming up on today's show, we're going to preview this game. First, though, every watch party that we've done so far this year, more than 100,000 views. We're going to shoot for that number once again come Sunday. Eagles Commies Watch Party. Our live coverage begins with an hour pregame show at noon Eastern time. So subscribe, turn on those notifications, super chat, giveaways, live play-by-play, audience interaction, and a whole lot more. Can't wait to see you there. So Philadelphia returning home, second home game of the season at the Link. They played Week 2 Thursday night against the Minnesota Vikings. The Birds, one of 3 teams in the NFL, still sporting an undefeated record going into Week 4, joining the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers. Kickoff is set for 1 o'clock Eastern time, and it's actually a breath of fresh air. A little bit nice that we get an early game for once. When I was growing up during the early Andy Reid days, there were so many of those 1 o'clock Eastern games because the Eagles weren't really a primetime draw at that point, not really a nationwide draw, but now they certainly are. That's why they're always playing in that late afternoon slot, Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night on holidays. But it's some old school football when you can see your team play at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Of note here, Philadelphia coming off that win against the Buccaneers, in which I think in each game they've shown flashes of dominance. Not dominant for 60 minutes, but flashes of dominance. That was their most complete game of the season, and because of that, the odds makers liking the Birds here, 8.5-point favorites, over-under set 444. And when you take a look at the NFC East Standings, how about them Cowboys? If you hate the Cowboys, type F Dallas down in the chat. A listless loss against Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals in Week 3. They fall to 2-1. Eagles rise up to the occasion in primetime. They beat the Bucs. They are 3-0. And then the Commanders started 2-0, lost to the Bills last week. They're 2-1. And the New York Giants 1-2. The Giants have not played 10 minutes or more with a lead this year. That's pretty crazy. As for how Washington has gotten to this point, they've been one of the surprise teams in the NFL, but I think you have to look at the 2 teams that they have beat so far this year. Week 1 against Arizona. Arizona has exceeded all expectations, and Jonathan Gannon, the early returns are pretty good. Got to give him credit for what he's been able to do. I know he's not thought of highly in Philadelphia because a lot of people blame him for the Eagles losing the Super Bowl, and they don't like his lack of aggressiveness as a defensive mind. But with Arizona, credit to him, they played good ball under his tutelage. So the Cardinals go on the road. They nearly beat Washington Week 1. Commanders escape with the 4-point win. Week 2, a wild game in which a Hail Mary was involved, in which the Commanders came back on the road, tough place to play, Mile High City, beat the Broncos 35-33. But last week, the Commanders came crashing down to reality, a 34-point loss at the hands of the Buffalo Bills. In my view, when I look at this matchup between Philadelphia and Washington, Lincoln Financial Field, I understand it's a divisional game. And last year, the Commanders handed the Eagles their first loss of the year. But I think this Commanders team is more along the lines of the team that lost badly to a premium team like the Buffalo Bills as compared to the one that beat 2 crappy teams and started off 2-0. I think they're more about a 500 ball club, maybe a little less than that, because they do have a lot of weaknesses on that roster. Their strengths, though, they do have some pretty good players. And I'm a fan of what they've done as far as their organizational philosophy over the last several years. They've addressed defensive line, and because of that, they have some really good players. Duron Payne, Montez Sweat, Chase Young when he's healthy. So that defensive line can get after the quarterback. They have a pretty solid running game that has played pretty well this year. Their wide receivers, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, solid 1-2 punch, and their cornerbacks also good. So that'll be a continued test for this Eagles passing offense. Their weaknesses, though, they do play in to some of the Eagles' strengths. They have a horrific offensive line that gave up 9 sacks 9 sacks to the Buffalo Bills last week. What's the strength of this Eagles team? Their defensive line, especially on the interior of that defensive line, because the interior Commanders' offensive line is not good. Commanders' turnover ratio, -3, that is 26th in the NFL right now. Ron Rivera, everybody likes to call him Riverboat Ron. He's not even aggressive to earn that nickname, and frankly, I don't think he's that good of a coach. And Sam Howell, a bad performance last week against Buffalo, finally went up against a really good defense, and he threw 4 interceptions. So with that, we ask you this. Who are you going with Sunday's game, Week 4 at the Lincoln South Philly? WAS for the Commanders, PHI for the Eagles. My score prediction coming up here in just a bit. Big boy football. I want to focus on those 3 words here next during our preview. The Philadelphia Eagles have manhandled teams in the trenches. New England Week 1, Minnesota Week 2, Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 3. This is yet another opportunity to do that and take the will of the opponent. Because this Eagles team almost smirks. When they have an opportunity to smell blood, they go after their prey, and they just kind of keep it moving. And I love that mentality for Philadelphia. It's a Philly thing, and they have that Philadelphia type of mentality, the hard hat to work type of crew, right? And Sam Howell last week, he finally showed signs of struggling, and defense catching up to what he does well with Eric Bieniemy as the new Commanders offensive coordinator. 19 of 29, 170 yards. Your day is never going to be easy when you get sacked 9 times by Buffalo. I honestly think that Philadelphia can put up sack numbers like that in this ball game on Sunday. And because Sam Howell was under siege, he wasn't seeing the field clearly. He was under duress. No touchdowns, 4 picks. What that tells me, you generate that pass rush on Sam Howell. You muddy up the pocket, and you have defenders coming right at his face. Through the interior of that offensive line, he is prone to making mistakes. And that's how the Eagles can partially win this football game on Sunday. And it's about time for the Eagles to get after the quarterback. They have 8 sacks in 3 games. They're not nearly on that pace of having 70 through 17 games like they had last year, the most since the mid-1980s when the Bears had those stout defenses. And this is the game where I think the Eagles' defensive line has a sack party. Hassan Reddick, no sacks yet this year. I think he gets on the board. That's one of my predictions. I think Jalen Carter has another sack. Fletcher Cox has some of the most quarterback hits among all defensive linemen in the NFL. You know, him, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, they've been so great at defensive tackle. Josh Sweat has been an unsung hero this year. You hold up on that back end in coverage, that allows that Eagles defensive line to pin their ears back and eat, and I think that could be the identity of this game. We're going to continue to preview this ball game, but first, this is a rivalry game, no matter which way you slice it up. So with that, we look at this photo here to my right. Remember this Monday night game way back in the day when the Philadelphia Eagles dump truck Washington, when Chip Kelly was taking the NFL by storm and Michael Vick had 6 touchdowns against the Redskins at the time? That was all the way back in 2010. What is your favorite all-time Philadelphia-Washington moment in this rivalry? Let me know down in the chat right now. More coming up, but first, today's show sponsored by AG1. How fitting is it that AG1, green logo, Eagles, beautiful green logo. And I love drinking AG1 every single day because it reminds me of the birds and it has me feeling good, my immune system strong. And I know when I drink AG1 first thing every single morning or after my workouts to replace what I sweat out, I'm able to check off all of the nutritional boxes that I need. Why is that, Chase? Because one small scoop of AG1 has less than 1 gram of sugar, yet 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients. All you have to do, mix 1 small scoop of AG1 with water, you shake it up, and you drink it, and you get these types of benefits. And these are things that can really benefit anybody out there. Promotes your gut health, it supports your immunity, and it boosts your focus as well as your energy. I drink it so I'm able to be wired in and do these shows to perfection and give you some of the best Eagles coverage right here on YouTube. So if you're looking for a comprehensive and convenient daily nutrition option, Drink AG1 is your answer. Use that link down below, drinkag1.com/chatsports, and when you plug in that link, you get 5 free travel packs and a year's supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Marquee offensive players for Washington here. Again, this is a talented football team with some good players on both sides of the ball. Brian Robinson, the former Alabama product, 47 carries so far this year, 216 yards, 4.5 yards per tote. Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, very solid 1-2 punch at wide receiver. They're not A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, but certainly one of the top half, I'd say, wide receiver duos in the NFL. Samuel, 10 catches, 127 yards, average yards per catch, 12.7. Then Terry McLaurin, after signing that big deal last offseason, 13 grabs for $126. Those are the marquee offensive players. And then they also have marquee defensive players. And what I said a little bit earlier is that this Washington team has invested a lot of draft capital along the defensive line. And Howie Roseman has done the same thing. So similar philosophies for both of these organizations, specifically along the defensive line. You have Montez Sweat, 3 sacks in 3 games, really good player coming off the edge. Chase Young missed the first game, but has 1.5 sacks in the last 2. And then Deron Payne, one of the finer defensive tackles in the game, who also has 5 TFLs on the year. My keys to the game here for the Birds to come out with the victory and push that record to 4-0. By the way, they're 3-0 in consecutive seasons for the first time in 30 years. The passing offense. Spent a few moments talking about the passing offense. I thought there were moments in that game on Monday night in which the pass offense looked very similar to how it did last year. And there were just signs of life. A.J. Brown got going, a couple of good throws to Dallas Goedert. Devontae Smith wasn't really involved, but a couple of splash plays to Olamide Zaccheaus. Most importantly, though, Jalen Hurts with that flu bug had his best throwing game of the season, throwing for 270-plus yards, and that play in which he kind of hung out in the pocket, surveyed the field, took a shot late, dropped it in the bucket to Zaccheaus was a big league type of throw. And against these good Washington corners, I want to continue to see the Eagles work on that pass game. To the red zone now. Nick Sirianni said on Wednesday he's been up late, he's been sick, nasty taste in his mouth, trying to figure out why the Eagles have stalled once they get inside the 20. You have to get 7, not just in this game, but find ways to get 7, because throughout the course of the season, that's going to be very, very important. This is pretty telling, and it tells you that the Eagles have had to settle in the red zone far too much as compared to last year when they were an explosive offense and an efficient offense in the red area. Jake Elliott in 2022 attempted 23 field goals all of last year. Through 3 games, he's almost at half of that. He's already attempted 10 field goals in 3 matchups this year. So, look, I love Jake Elliott. Second best kicker in the game right now behind Justin Tucker in my estimation. But the Eagles, you got to get 7. And while you could trust Jake Elliott to put the ball in between the uprights, it's always better to come out with a touchdown as compared to 3, especially against a feisty defense like Washington. Key number 3, dominate the line of scrimmage. No excuse why you shouldn't be able to, especially with your defensive line against their porous offensive line. You looked at the tape from this Bills matchup. Look at ways to expose Washington's front. And Ian Rappaport, NFL Network, did talk about on Wednesday how Sean Desai, what he's done with this defense. A lot of people are taking note. He could become a primetime head coaching commodity after this upcoming season. He's doing some great work. Watch that Bills tape, see what they did with defensive line stunts, and just getting creative with getting after Sam Howell and forcing turnovers. And then for the Eagles offensive line, very good test. First 3 weeks, they've had these really good moments, especially weeks 2 and 3, where they've run the football right through the teeth of that Vikings and Bucs defense. Against this defensive line, if you show up and show out, that's impressive. Keep feeding DeAndre Swift. What Swift has been able to do in his last 2 games, he has added a different dimension and a special weapon to this Eagles offense. And ever since they got him going, this Eagles offense has started to get going. Last 2 games, after inexcusably getting 2 touches in week 1 against New England, Swift against the Vikings, 28 totes, $175, 6.2 yards per carry. Against the Bucs, 16 carries, 130 yards, 8 yards per carry, He's combined for 44 carries, 305 yards, nearly 7 yards a pop in the last 2 games. And despite only getting those 2 touches week 1, he's number 2 behind Christian McCaffrey in the NFL in rushing yards. Number 5, if you play dumb games, you will win dumb prizes. That saying, remember it, because the only way the Eagles lose this game is if they're lackadaisical with the football, if they're lazy with the pill, and if they decide to put the football on the ground. And if they put it in harm's way, that's going to give the Commanders a little bit of life. The Commanders came into the Link last year, primetime, handed the Birds an L. They're not scared of Philadelphia. These two teams know each other very well, but the Eagles are the far better team. They're starting to round into form right now. And if that synergy comes together, the Eagles can be dominant. But they can easily take a step back if they cough the football up. Again, it's refreshing to have a 1 o'clock Eastern game, and we're going to be able to have a little bit of a pregame tailgate in the morning on Sunday. Can't wait for it for our watch party. As for the latest Philadelphia Eagles injury news, not sure what's going to go on with a guy like Quez Watkins dealing with that hamstring. I honestly think Olamide Zaccheaus might be the better overall player. Sidney Brown hamstring, not expected to be serious. Landon Dickerson knee, not expected to be serious. Justin Evans' neck, we will see. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Nick Sirianni and the Eagles are going to release their injury report on Wednesday night. And without further ado, my score prediction for this game, Week 4 at the Link. I think the Eagles continue to stay on this path. Look, we're witnessing something pretty special right now. Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts in their last 21 games together are 20-1. Some people want to say that winning is not a quarterback stat. If Tom Brady, Peyton Manning didn't win, it would be a problem. If Joe Montana didn't win, it would be a problem. Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, they're winning games right now, and they're winning at an unbelievable clip, and I don't think that they suffer a loss on Sunday. 32-20, my final score, as this Eagles offense able to shred the Washington Commanders. Predict the score before we hop on out of here. You got mine. Let me know yours down below. Don't forget to subscribe and join us live Sunday for our watch party.